So with Eli Manning's retirement in the offseason, this upcoming NFL season will mark the first season since 1998 that's not going to feature a member of the Manning family, which is simply crazy. However, this doesn't mean that this is the last we're going to see of the Manning family. So today I want to introduce you to the next Manning, who may end up being the greatest Manning that we've ever seen when all is said and done. But before we get into that, wow, you guys are simply insane. I mean, the support on my recent videos has been incredible, and the channel is growing so fast. I'm truly at a loss for words, so thank you. I also want to quickly mention that only a small percentage of the people who watch my videos are actually subscribed, so if you do end up enjoying this video and haven't done so already, please do consider subscribing for daily NFL football videos. And with that being said, let's get started. Now, the Manning family tree is by far one of the most storied NFL families in the league's history, and it all starts at the top with Archie Manning. Archie grew up in Mississippi and would start his journey as a quarterback at Drew High School. Now, after high school, Archie went on to attend Ole Miss, where he became a legend to the school and would find himself inducted into the College Football Hall of Fame. He would then go on to be selected by the New Orleans Saints second overall in the 1971 NFL Draft. Now, sadly, Archie's career from this point forward would kind of take a downward spiral from here, and this was due in no part to an inability to adjust to the NFL level or anything like that, rather because the Saints simply weren't good back in the day. In his 10 years with the Saints, they would only have one winning record, and in these 10 years, Archie was really the only bright spot on a team that didn't have much to cheer for. After his 10 years with the Saints, Archie would bounce around for another 3 years and then hang up the pads in 1984. You then have Peyton Manning, who was born on March 24th, 1976. Now, Peyton grew up in the heart of New Orleans and would start his journey as a quarterback at Newman High School. After high school, Peyton went on to play quarterback for the Tennessee Vols, and this surprised a lot of people, as many thought that Peyton would actually follow in Archie's footsteps, his father, and attend Ole Miss. But it all worked out in the end, as Peyton would be selected with the first pick in the 1998 NFL Draft by the Indianapolis Colts. Now, he'd play with the Colts from 1998 to 2011, appearing in 2 Super Bowls and winning 1, then would go on to finish out his career with the Denver Broncos from 2012 to 2015, appearing in 2 Super Bowls and again winning 1, before retiring after 18 years in the league. And then lastly, you have Eli Manning, born January 3rd, 1981. Now, Eli, much like Peyton, grew up in the heart of New Orleans and would start his journey as a quarterback at Newman High School. After high school, Eli would go on to play for Ole Miss, following in his father's footsteps, and after a few years would go on to declare for the 2004 NFL Draft and was selected first overall by the San Diego Chargers, despite the fact that he made it very clear he was unwilling to play for them. Now, after holding his ground, of course, the Chargers and Giants did end up trading their picks, and Eli was a Giant. And he'd remain a Giant until 2020, when he would officially decide to hang the pads up as a 2-time Super Bowl champ. As you can tell, the Manning family has such a rich history in the NFL, but there's one Manning that I haven't mentioned yet, one that doesn't have a storied NFL career, one that never even played a down of college football. I'm talking about the often forgotten Cooper Manning, the eldest of the Manning brothers. Now, let's not act like Cooper is some bum that doesn't deserve to be mentioned in the same breath as his younger brothers and father. I mean, at one point, Cooper was a highly recruited wide receiver. Yes, I said wide receiver, that was set to follow in his father's footsteps and play for Ole Miss. That was until Cooper was diagnosed with spinal stenosis, which, upon his diagnosis, led to him immediately stopping all forms of football activities. That said, though, Cooper was the most athletic Manning brother, which is a characteristic that he inherited from his father, Archie. Now, it might sound strange hearing that Peyton and Eli's father had some serious wheels, and I was actually surprised myself when I watched his highlights, but it's true, as crazy as it sounds. And he passed this trait down to his eldest son, Cooper, who would have been an incredible wide receiver had he not been diagnosed with spinal stenosis. All that said, this is an incredibly storied family tree, as I've already said, but sadly with Eli's retirement, we're about to enter the first NFL season since 1998 that will not feature a Manning. But that doesn't mean that this tree is done growing. Not at all. We are about to bear witness as the Manning tree grows a brand new branch. And that branch is Archie Manning. Archie Manning's a 15-year-old freshman quarterback for Newman High School, the same high school that Peyton, Eli, and his father Cooper Manning attended and played for in their youth. And as I subtly mentioned, Arch is the son of Cooper Manning, the eldest of the Manning brothers. Now, in Arch's freshman year, he managed to make it onto Newman's varsity team as their starting quarterback, and he'd go on to pass for 2,438 yards, 34 touchdowns to 6 interceptions with a 65% completion rate, and led the team to a 9-2 record, winning Max Prep's National Freshman of the Year honors. Pretty solid for a freshman playing varsity ball. Now, as I mentioned, he became the starting quarterback on the varsity team as a freshman. Now, what's crazy about this is the fact that Arch is the first Manning to do this. He's the first Manning to be the starting quarterback on Newman's varsity team as a freshman. He's already accomplished something that both Peyton and Eli were simply unable to do. And according to numerous scouts, coaches, and even his grandfather Archie, there's a reason why he started his freshman year while Peyton and Eli sat on the bench. Arch is said to be better than both Peyton and Eli were at his age. Now, this is likely due in part to the fact that he has been working one-on-one with both Peyton and Eli, who are two Hall of Fame NFL quarterbacks, on his throwing mechanics and footwork since he was very, very young, but he's ahead of the Manning curve, which is really exciting. And on top of this, Arch has inherited a characteristic that he is capable of implementing into his game that both Peyton and Eli simply were incapable of implementing and would be unable to teach him. Arch is not only looked at as a passing prodigy, but he as well boasts a considerable amount of mobility, which is a dimension to his game that both Peyton and Eli, as I said before, lacked. And Arch likely inherited this characteristic from his father Cooper, and by extension, Cooper's father and Arch's grandfather Archie. And the fact that Arch may be capable of blending his grandfather's mobility with his uncle's elite passing abilities rivaled by hardly anyone to ever play the game of football, that's scary. Now, again, if Arch is able to continue at this current trajectory, then we may have not seen the best to come out of the Manning family tree. The potential that this kid has is it's insane. And the fact that he's already ahead of the curve when compared to both Peyton and Eli, two quarterbacks that will go on to become Hall of Famers at the NFL level, Arch has a really bright future ahead of him. And recruiters are already beginning to recognize this fact, the fact that he does have this bright future ahead of him, as he's already received a multitude of scholarships from D1 schools and has even visited with Ed Ogeron of LSU. Did I mention that this kid only just finished his freshman season of high school? Now, although he is years away from committing to a school and actually stepping foot onto the college gridiron, we have to recognize Arch's unique situation. Arch is in a very interesting situation because when it comes to his signing day, he's going to be stood facing a fork in the road. There are already two pathways that have been paved for him to follow. He can either follow his grandfather Archie, Uncle Eli, and Father Cooper's footsteps and attend Ole Miss, which I do believe has a serious edge over any school that will come and attempt to recruit Archie simply because of the storied family tradition of Ole Miss. Or he can follow in his uncle Peyton's footsteps and carve out his own path. Now, I'm not necessarily implying that Arch is going to go and play for the Tennessee Vols like Peyton. Rather, he may go and play for a school like LSU or maybe Bama or, who knows? This will be a very interesting decision when it does come down to it for Arch, though, as I've said before, because we saw what happened when Peyton decided to tread off the Manning family's path and start carving his own pathway by playing with the Vols rather than the Rebels. Now, I doubt that Arch would receive the exact same treatment as Peyton did, as he wouldn't be the first Manning to spurn the Ole Miss Rebels, but you really have to consider that as well when it does come to Arch's decision. Is that backlash worth it to him? Again, though, we have to remember that Arch is part of the class of 2023, which, one, makes me feel really, really old, and two, means that we will have to wait another 3 years before we even get to this part of Arch's story. We have to wait another 3 years before we learn what pathway Arch is going to follow, so we can speculate, but that's kind of all it is. Speculation. And then on top of that, it will be another 3 to 4 years tacked on to the 3 already mentioned before we see Arch step foot onto the NFL field for the first time. In total, we have 6 to 7 years before we'll be able to watch another Manning take the league by storm, which seems crazy after we've had the Manning family actively playing in the league for 22 years straight. And with all that being said, we also have to consider the fact that maybe Arch will want to take a different path entirely. I mean, Arch is playing for Newman's basketball team as well. He's a 6'2" freshman who will only continue to grow as he does get older. Maybe he'll decide to diverge from the Manning family's pathway altogether and try and make a name for himself in the NBA. I mean, it's possible. And fact is, anything is possible at the end of the day. Hell, with the huge spotlight and all the pressure being put onto him at such a young age, at the end of the day, maybe he'll just decide to forego all sports together after high school and live a normal life. That way, he doesn't have all that pressure and the burden on him of having to be that next great Manning and take the league by storm. Again, anything is possible. At the end of the day, though, I hope that this burden isn't too much on Arch to be the next great Manning, or the spotlight isn't too bright for him and he continues to push forward after high school to play football and maybe even makes it to the NFL level one day. I mean, this kid has all the potential in the world, and if he continues on the path he's currently on, then we may be looking at the greatest Manning ever.